Today we're going to tie a micro intruder for trout. You can fish it with either a spey rod or the single hand rod. If you fish it with a single hand, you can use like a intermediate poly tip or something like that, or a full sinking line or sink tip on your rod to get the fly down. Fishing with a spey rod, then it's pretty easy to just change out sink tips to get it to the depth where you want. The thing about intruder flies, the definition almost of them, I suppose, is that they have a trailing hook. They're tied on a shank, and they have a trailing hook. They have two stations, this rear station and a front station with a body in between. This one happens to have some Angora goat as a little bump or a prop for this hackle that's in front of it. This body material is Estaz, but it can be anything. It could be chenille, it could be fuzzy dubbing and a dubbing loop, or it could even be something nice and smooth like a braid tensile, or just flat tensile, or oval even, to give a nice segmentation. Then the front station has another hackle, or a couple of hackles, and the body material itself acts as a prop to hold up the hackle. If you were using something like flat tensile, you could put in another dubbing ball like this, like the one in the rear, to prop up the hackle. And then to get some good movement, these are some silly legs. You could substitute these with some long saddle hackles that extend back over the back to the length of this rear hackle. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started, and let's tie one of these up. Okay, I'm using a 25mm shank, and because it's an up eye and then it's flat in the rear, then I just orient my vise this way. It just makes it a little easier for me optically to have this hook eye facing up like I normally tie flies. I'm going to use this fire line, 30-pound fire line. That's what we're going to secure the trailing hook with. That rear bump is this Angora goat, and this is a shell pink or a hot pink. I've got some ring neck rump hackle for the rear hackle. The body material is this Estaz, which is in a root beer. The legs I'm using that in the front are the silly legs. They're orange. Then I've got some Mallard dyed wood duck for the front hackle, and in front of that is this soft grizzly in a tan. The thread I'm using is this 140 denier black thread. You could go as heavy as 210 if you wanted to. It's a pretty big fly with material, so using small thread isn't that important. So when I tie in this trailer hook, I like to hang the thread, the line back here, so I know this is what I need if I ever want to change this out. So the closest I could ever tie this in is about like that. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of gauge it here. I'm just going to make a couple wraps just to hold that in, and then I'm going to pull my hook off. Oops, let me readjust that. I'm going to pull my hook off so that I'm not constantly stabbing myself while I'm working this fly. So I'll just bind this down, and I'll come up here and run that through the eye, and then double it back over and lash it down. That way I know it won't come undone. Now before I get too far, I'm going to take some old scissors and I'm going to cut this off. Oh, that's why you get old scissors. Fire line's pretty tough stuff. Alright. Alright, I'm going to make a little dubbing loop here. For my rear bump. And I'm going to take my dubbing spinner and I'm going to hang it here. And I'm going to take my dubbing and I'm going to try to just even it up a little bit, so I'll just continually take these fibers and pull them apart and restack them on top of one another so that the ends are pretty close to being lined up, like so. Then I'll open up my loop, my dubbing loop, and I'll set these in here like so. And then I'll give my dubbing spinner a good spin and let that twist up. Another one. And then I'll take my brush. It's got a little Velcro strip on the back, and I'll just kind of brush this out. Get this dubbing kind of brushed down a little bit. There we go. And then just brush all these, preen these all back. I'm going to sweep all these back, all these fibers, so everything's going to lay back nice. And we'll just start here and create a little bump and a little bit of a veil back there with these fibers reaching back. Just like so. And then we can tie this down. And notice as I'm tying this down, I'm actually pulling this a little forward so that it gives a little more strength, and then I can come back on it again. And that way you know that there's no way that can pull out, or anyway, it should not pull out when you come back in here and brush. Alright, so we want to brush this out really nice, and that'll ensure that you're not pulling that thread out as you're brushing. Okay, so good. We got a nice little bump back there. Now we'll take this rump feather, and we just want to get as much of this fibers as we can, so we'll pull these down to create a tie-in point. About like so. We'll capture this in here, wrap forward a few times, and then pull this back, wrap back on itself. Again, that will increase the durability. You don't worry about it pulling out. And we'll take the scissors here and kind of run along the edge. That will help those fibers lay back. So we'll preen everything back. And wrap here. Get 2-3 good wraps. Alright, we'll stop before we get into that marabou. Alright. Like so. Make sure that's wrapped down really good on the stem. Now we actually have two choices on this rubber, on the silly leg. We can tie it in back here, or we can tie it up here. I'm going to choose to tie it up front so that I actually have more length of it. I'll get a lot more action out of it. So I'm going to save that and tie it up front. So I'll take my Estaz pull just a little bit off the end here. It's a little better tie-in point. Capture that right there. Take my thread forward, and you can see on this S-Daz, it's kind of twisted right now, but if I kind of untwist it just a little bit, I can get all those fibers onto the same side, more or less. Then when I wrap this, I can preen these back easier. As you can see here, you can see they're all the fibers are laying back. Here's a straight edge, and all these fibers are laying back. And we do that, we can create a little bit more bulk in the body. Looks a little fuzzier, a little buggier. And I think we're probably about there, and that leaves me enough room for my hackle right there. All right, got that excess removed. Alright, so let's take the leg. We just kind of fold it in half here, and that's where we're going to tie it in. Tie it here on this close side. Right there. And then pull it across to the other side and lash it down. So we have one strand on each side, like so. And now we're ready for our mallard. As we did with the pheasant, we're just gonna preen these down so we get a tie-in point. Now with this one, we don't need a lot of wraps. 2-3 wraps are the very most. So same thing though, we'll go forward, pull this back, wrap back on itself a couple times, and grab that tip so we can cut it out. Like so. And we'll take our scissors and run it along the edge. It helps pull these back some. So there's one. And there's two. And that's probably good there. And we'll cut this stem out. And pull everything back, clean it up. Like so. And we can brush it a little bit. Okay. And now we're ready for our marabou. And we've got this nice marabou here, and you can see the stem. You got to watch when it starts to get a little too thick down here, so you're going to be able to work with this thinner part of it. So, but we're going to try to capture some of this nice barred hackle up here too. So we'll create a tie-in point up here, and that'll give me probably a full turn at least of that barred feather before I get into the marabou portion. And again, fold that back on itself. Get close to crowding that head. So, preen it all back. And get all that back. Okay. Alright, we'll get this cut off. Get this cleaned up. And just nice neat little head on here. We've got a few little stragglers here we'll take care of. Alright, we'll whip finish this. Alright, now we still have, let's see, I got another little straggler there. Okay. Now we can brush all this out before we put the head cement on. So I'm going to use some UV thin on here. Now some of these bigger flies that have bigger heads on them, I think this UV looks nice. It gives it a nice shine, as opposed if I'm just doing, say, a little mayfly nymph or something. I wouldn't go to the trouble of using this. But I think these flies look nice when you have this on there. Yeah, then another final brushing, and there you go. That's a micro intruder. Gonna get a lot of action from that, and that'll pick you up some fish. So tie some of those up and go out and get you some.